Hello, everyone. Okay, I have on the podcast with me today one of my special clients, and her name is Grace. She is oh my gosh, I totally forgot. I will forget. So it's very funny. Me and Grace, been working together for almost 4 months now, but I keep on forgetting the full title of what she does. So maybe I'll leave it for you and maybe have you share with the audience exactly what you do.
Okay, I work as a neurodiagnostic technologist. Basically, I work in a hospital to do like EEG and EMG testing, like brainwave studies and nerve testing in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I can never get that right. And Grace is in her 20s. And what over the last 4 months, what we have really worked on together is really helping her figure out her life's direction, kind of her career path and what she wanted to do. I remember she first came to me with a lot of ideas of what she wanted to do, and slowly we kind of help her work through it and help her figure this out. We also really talked about kind of her relationship with her family and dealing with parental expectations, especially when it comes to her dad, as well as managing anxiety and working through your to-do list and feeling like you're behind and all of those things. And I feel like a lot of people can really relate to what she went through, and probably someone listening today is probably going through the same thing of what you went through. So I feel like there's a lot that you can share. Yes. So besides this, is there anything else that you would want to share about yourself, Grace?
Mm, no, I think that's a pretty good summary of how I started, why I started, and I guess the more questions will come to kind of explain my journey, yeah, within the past 4 months.
Yes. Yeah.
hmm
So I remember in our first session, right, you shared about all the things that you wanted to try, but and then at the time, like you have a lot of ideas. And I think this is what comes out for people a lot as well, is that people have a lot of ideas. And most of the time, you know what you want to do. There's a lot of things that you want to do. But at the same time, you still felt stuck and unclear with where you were at. What do you think was making you feel stuck and unclear? And how did you overcome that to eventually land on your current path? Because eventually, right now, at where you are right now, you decided to continue down to go back to school and to go back to studying for the master's program for BCBA, right? So maybe share with us about what that is for you, what that is like for you.
Yeah, I guess I can start from like the very beginning of like this journey. So I think I was kind of I felt very stuck like 4 months ago because I've always known that I wanted to have something of my own. I didn't want to just work for someone else for the rest of my life. And my dad has also really been encouraging, like he's been encouraging us to create something of our own as well, because he himself is an entrepreneur. And so I've always had that burden on myself, not just from him, but also from myself. And I feel like 4 months ago, I was in this rush to create an outcome right away. And at the time, I was very frustrated with not having any progress with anything. So I was looking for a lot of different resources. Like, for example, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I was reading books about how to become an entrepreneur. And it almost felt like I was overloaded with lots and lots of information. And I didn't know where to begin because there's just so much. For example, I can't really remember the things because it's been so long, but one thing that I did have on my to-do list was to do some freelance work on Upwork. And I had that idea because I got that idea from the podcast, and the podcaster was really selling this idea. So I was like, okay, well, why don't I start that? So I shared the idea with Shirley, and then we decided to just give it a shot. And then within the first 2 days after creating the account, I realized that it was just not something that I wanted to do, and I didn't feel driven to do it at all. I felt very pressured by myself to do it, so I just stopped all like once and for all. And then from that experience, I kind of learned that something sometimes to kind of to know if that, if the path is for you, is to just do it. Because I was struggling with whether or not I should do Upwork for the longest time until I did it. And I realized that it wasn't for me. And so I crossed that off of my to-do list and never thought about it again. So that's kind of where I started. And that Upwork was just one of the examples. And then, yeah. And then we slowly, like, through, and over the course of the 4 months, we slowly went through all my to-do lists to figure out, to kind of narrow down to the thing that I genuinely want to do. And then we eventually landed on the final decision that is for me to go back to school to pursue this career path that I used to be hesitant about because of my own biases and stuff. But after like talking through it, eventually I realized this is something that I'm good at, and this is something that I think I will have great passion for. Yeah, so that's kind of where I am now.
Hmm. Yeah, it really sounded like what you just described is that you had to try a lot of different things. I think this is
Mhm.
one of the things that really hold people back a lot is that when, like, the reason why they felt so stuck is actually because there were no any sort of movement and any sort of action that they are
Mhm.
taking. And so they're thinking a lot, but there's
Mhm.
not really that much execution. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, in the past few months, you actually worked on a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think because we met every single week and there's a little bit of progress every single week. So it didn't feel like I've worked on a lot because every week it's just a little bit, but then everything kind of accumulates and adds up. And then as we were kind of wrapping things up a few weeks ago, it was kind of surprising to see like how much I've done, even though I didn't like get the outcome right away, after every single week. But it does show that we don't have to like, at least based on my experience, I don't have to make huge progress within a small time span. If I just do like one or two things each week, then I could potentially see outcomes in the long term. Yeah.
Hmm. You only know how much you've done, like only when you look back and you
Hmm.
realize you're like, oh, wow, that's a lot. But in the moment, it's just one thing at a time.
Yeah, yeah. And then you mentioned the thinking too much. That was me 4 months ago when I was really just thinking and not doing. And then what helped me move forward was actually the doing, not the thinking. So that was a big change for me since, 4 months ago when I felt stuck.
Yeah. And what made you decide to do BCBA? Because before
Uh,
you said you were hesitant about it, right?
yeah, so I think I don't know if it's just my Asian background or I've always felt like to be successful, I need to be in a field that's very technical. Like
Mm,
it could be, I don't know, in a science field, in the technical, like in a tech field, anything that's like that requires like high education, right? And that requires hard skill, not just skills. So I've always had that bias just myself. And then BCBA is basically because I've been working with this client with autism for over maybe 6, 7 years. And I've been told that I'm really good at teaching or just hanging out with people with special needs. And I am really passionate about that too. But in a way, it's not really in, like the kind of field that I think successful people are in. So that was kind of like the main reason why I was so hesitant to really commit to this path. And that's not because of anyone else. And that's not because my dad was giving me pressure to be like to be a doctor or a lawyer, as cliche as it can be. It's really just from my own bias against, the nature of the job.
mm,
So after I sorted through my thoughts and the reason why I was so against or I was so hesitant to really commit, I finally decided to just accept that and also kind of pursue that formally now. Yeah.
And during this process, we had several discussions around kind of your interaction with dad and how in the past, maybe your dad didn't really approve of the type of career that you wanted to do. Can you share about what that experience was like between you and him? And is there anything that really stood out to you on what we worked on around your relationship with your dad that really helped you to approach how you interact with him so much more differently now?
So I would say from his side, he hasn't changed a thing. It's more of my interpretation of the situation that's changed. So we went through, well, first, well, he's so very like insistent on us creating our own business. And so that's also been being a stressor for me. But I think what's changed is how I process like so usually he will ask a lot of questions whenever like, we if I tell him, hey, I think I'm interested in doing this, he will ask me a bunch of questions. And that used to intimidate me a lot because I would think that, oh, he's definitely doubting me. He's only asking all these questions because he doesn't believe in me, or he doesn't believe in this idea. He doesn't think I'm going to succeed. But now, after, dissecting our interaction and really understanding where he's coming from by like looking at my emotions and what triggered my emotions, I realized that a lot of times the circumstance doesn't change. What changes is our interpretation. And once we change that interpretation, we'll be able to change our emotion in that situation as well. And I guess the model that we shared in our sessions is called, I have it written down here. It's like CTFAR
Mm-hmm.
model.
Yeah.
I would say that's the biggest takeaway of our time together because it really just changes how I look at everything in my life, including my interaction with my dad. Yeah,
Mm.
which can be stressful at times.
Yeah. I want to highlight something that you said. You said that
Mhm.
he actually didn't change,
Yeah.
right? But then because of your perception of him changed, like what you make out of his responses and how you interpret that event in that moment, that has changed.
Yeah.
And he actually stayed the same. And I think this is what's very important for people to like really see and really understand is that you don't need two people to change a relationship. A lot of the times in order for you to feel differently in a relationship, you just need to change how you think and how you feel about it. And because like someone can be saying the exact things to you, but two people will interpret it entirely differently just based on your experiences and how you're interpreting it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Is there like an example? Do you mind sharing like a specific example of like this is what, for example, this is what I interpret of that before, and this is how I see things differently now.
Yeah, like I said, he likes to ask a lot of questions, right? And I used
Hmm.
to think that that was because he was doubting me, he doesn't believe in me. And usually that would lead to me changing that or just discarding that idea completely and giving up on that idea. But now, after doing some analysis, we kind of decided that, you know what, the reason why he's asking all these questions is because he cares, he worries about us. It's not necessarily the idea itself. It's more like he wants to make sure that we are sure, or I am sure
Mm.
about this decision. And he wants to make sure that like I won't regret making this decision. And he wants to make sure that we're gonna be fine. But maybe the way he shows that is through asking a lot of questions. So it's not necessarily that he doesn't believe in us. It's because it's more like he just wants to make sure we're okay. And I think after understanding that, now that when he asks questions, I can kind of hold myself together more and not get intimidated right away. And especially after deciding to commit to the BCBA path, it makes it much easier for me to, get my answers ready for him just in case if he wants to ask more questions. So it's really just changing that perspective, kind of like interpretation of like his like the reason why he's asking all these questions.
Mm. And now how do you feel around him? And when you have those conversations with him?
I mean, it's still stressful,
Yeah.
but I think oh, also I think I've been working on like believing in myself, right? Because I
Mm.
think the reason why I like got so intimidated was also because I don't believe in myself more. So if he asked me, then that just kind of adds on to it and adds on to the disbelief. So now that I have like more belief in myself and my decision, my choices, and also understanding that he's not questioning me because he doesn't believe in me, he just cares. That makes it easier for us to have a conversation without me feeling so stressed out all the time.
Mm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are listening or you're watching, just notice what Grace just said, right? Like what has changed is when dad asks her the same question, because dad still asked her the same question. But now how she interprets it is she's thinking that, oh, this just means that he cares. This just means that he actually worries about me. This doesn't mean that he doesn't believe in me. This doesn't mean that he is doubting my decision. And also, this doesn't mean that I should change, right? This doesn't mean that I'm doing anything wrong. That is just responding in a maybe in a reactionary way of what he has been very used to
Hmm.
asking this question. But underneath that sentence and underneath that words is just showing that he cares.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's what your interpretation of it is. And even just like thinking that, right? Like when a parent shows that you care, shows you that they care, it's almost like instead of making you feel more afraid or want to like be remove yourself from them, in a way it actually feel more makes you feel more connected with them because you're like, they care. Oh, hey, they're a human too. Hey, they have fears and worries too, and they just care about you.
Yeah, that I think yeah, that's a good point too. It's like showing like seeing their human side as well. It's like maybe in that moment they're just being a worrying parent. They're not really there to critique you. They really just genuinely cares about you and worries about you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you feel like you want to add when it comes to your relationship with your dad?
Obviously, it's a work in progress. I'm still working on it, but I think really just having that belief in myself, it really helps when I get confronted or when I have to confront him.
Mm,
And yeah, and I didn't mention this yet, but I actually do also do want to like, so besides like pursuing the BCBA profession to become a behavioral consultant in the end, I also want to create like a product that we've been talking about it. I haven't really started doing. It's kind of like a product on the side that's kind of related to this profession. And Shirley mentioned a good point, like a few sessions ago, she mentioned that at the beginning of like this, at the early stages, maybe just don't mention this to people, whose opinions can largely affect you because you would really want to protect the idea and you want to just give it a try. You don't want other people's negative opinions to just sway you in these early stages because maybe down the line you can be successful. But if you listen to these people's negative opinions too early on and you give up on the idea, then then you wouldn't know. So I think I'm taking that approach. I haven't started working on the project that I'm trying to potentially achieve in the like maybe in the next year or so, but I have been keeping that away from my dad just for the time being. And I'm hoping that having that space for myself to create something that I do want to create without his judgment necessarily would give me some more freedom to experiment with things and to execute my ideas. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like it's still a baby, and you want to
Mm,
tend to it. I think an analogy I use with you is like the ceiling that's still sprouting out and it's
mm,
still kind of shaky yet. The roots are not as deep and it's not as strong yet. And so it's like tender and vulnerable, and
Mm-hmm.
you want to protect it. You don't want to just like share with anyone, especially like sometimes the people who love you the most, they can like ruin that idea the most. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think like you really want to trust yourself with the fact that you know when it's time to share and when it's time to protect it, and
Mm-hmm.
just let it be in your own possibility for you to build it. And then when you think that you feel ready, like it's ready for more people to hear about it, then I think you will know what's right for you to let more
Mm-hmm.
people know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think keeping it from him will also allow me to do it at my own pace. Because then I
Mm,
don't have to, do like a monthly report to him.
yeah. I hope that he
Yeah.
doesn't listen to this podcast.
I hope not. But yeah, so that's another thing between kind of like the dynamic between me and my dad regarding with respect to like the career choices that I'm making and I'm experimenting with. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a fun creative project for you, right? That's something that you are also interested in.
Hmm.
So it's really here for you to, and now that you're going to school and you also have this project that you know it's in the back burner, and whenever you feel ready, you'll bring it outwards for you to really think about. I think that's amazing that you're holding both instead of just picking one and like
Hmm.
just doing one thing.
Yeah. I'm hoping that down the line I'll have more time that I can commit to this. But like I said, I haven't really started, so I'm really excited to start once I
That's not
finish
true.
all the
It's not true
project.
that you haven't started.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I have started a little bit, but I'm taking
Yeah.
a break.
What are some of the things that you've done?
So the project is basically kind of like a data collecting tool, but it's a very specialized type. And the whole reason why I had this idea was because on my team, like as a BI, like behavioral interventionist, when I work with the client with autism, when we collect data, it's all on papers and it's very manual. And I was hoping to maybe create something that's more digitized, it's more, I guess, more efficient. And so I kind of chatted with my coworkers about, you know, if they think it would be a good idea to have like a digital product that could help us keep track of our data. I've also reached out to a few companies that offer this kind of digital products just to kind of see to kind of see how the market is right now. And then what I found out is a lot of it a lot of the existing products cater to a younger population, but my client is like 22. So a lot of the things that we run with him, like a lot of programs that we run with him, the nature of them is quite different from what, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old would be doing. So, and that's kind of like, so there's a missing, like, the clientele and kind of like the older range, a product that serves them is missing in the field at the moment, at least. So I'm hoping to start the project by creating something that we can benefit from. And then once I go back to school, once I'm more exposed to more age range, maybe we can add on to it. But I think the motivation behind this project is to make our lives
Mm,
a little
hmm.
easier as BIs when we collect data. Yeah.
Yeah, notice you've already done a lot of research. You've reached out to people as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already a project that you're already working on, and that's amazing. Is there anything from our experience working together that stood out to you or that surprised you?
I think it's really just the model, yeah,
Mm,
the changing, because it really is really applicable in every single aspect of our lives. Sometimes, like, even a little trouble at work, if you just switch your interpretation, if you just change your point of view a little, like, it can really change your whole experience. And
yeah.
and day to day as well, like, your relationship with your friends, family, like it really is a game changer.
So
Yeah.
for those of you who are listening who are not sure what the model is, so basically it is a way of how we interpret the world and how we create our results. So the whole idea is that your thoughts, the circumstances that surround your life, it triggers a thought that you have, which generates a feeling that you feel in your body. And through this feeling, it creates certain behaviors and actions that you do, which lead to your results. And so notice how practical it can be. And what I love about this model and like this way of helping you create change and helping you create a different result in your life is that it's very practical and it makes the fluffiness because sometimes we're like, I want to change my mindset, or I know it's my thoughts, but like, how do I actually do that? And through this approach of applying this into your life, you can create change in a very practical way where you can actually see your thoughts and your feelings so evidently, and knowing how to work with both of those intangible, quote unquote, like invisible things, and then use that for you to actually create a different result.
Hmm.
So that's what I really like about it. And this is like one of the main tools. There's a lot of different tools, but this is one of the main tools that I definitely work with people on. And what's amazing about this is that once you know it, you cannot not know it.
Yeah, that is true.
And you can just take this with you for the rest of your life and continue to hone in on it and like really think about how this can really influence how you choose to live your life and then create a very practical result for you and practical change for you.
Yeah.
Yes. So if someone is listening right now and they're also going through a similar experience that you went through, so maybe right now they're also feeling stuck and lost, trying to figure out a new path, or maybe kind of they realize that the path that they're on right now is actually not what they want to do, but they don't know what that next step look like for them to create that type of change. Is there anything that you can offer for them?
I think obviously everyone's case is a little different. For me personally, I really need that external motivation to move forward. I think part of the reason why I was stuck was I was having a difficult time finding the internal motivation to start doing things, and that's why I reached out to Shirley and hoping that, having sessions every week would be the external motivator to start to like kind of force me to start moving. So I would say just start doing things. Like if there's a few things, if I were to tell myself like the me 4 months ago, I would probably just tell myself to start doing things. It doesn't matter how small it is. The thing is, just start doing it, and then you'll kind of start to filter things out.
Is there anything that you want them to know and any tips that you want to offer for them?
Uh, yeah, just know that it's really normal to feel stuck, I
Mm,
guess. A lot of my friends are also stuck. We're all stuck in different ways, I guess. And then so I think just trying things out. And then during that process, we'll start to filter things out. So then we will kind of gain a better understanding of our interests, our passions, what we're good at, our strength, our weaknesses. And then hopefully by the end of it, you will only have a few options left. And and then yeah, you can try. And then also we talked about pretty early on in our time together that sometimes when you try something and it fails, it's like it's not personal. It's nothing personal. It's just might just mean that this project is not meant for you, or maybe the timing is not right. And there's a lot of factors that can contribute to, a quote unquote failed project, but just because the project quote unquote failed doesn't mean the experience was a failure. Because because we always learn things through doing things. So I think if I were to tell, myself the version of me 4 months ago, I would probably just encourage her to start doing things and keep in mind that a failed project doesn't mean a failure, a personal failure doesn't mean a fa
mm.
personal failure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The phrase that I always like to tell people is that action creates clarity.
Mm,
Like you have to take action, and then along the process, you will feel more and more clear about where you're going. But if you
yeah.
feel unclear, if you feel lost right now, then perhaps there's not enough actions. And also notice that you don't have to take giant steps. It's
Mhm.
literally like going from A to B. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? And then next week go from B to C, and that's it. But then after like, for example, like what Grace just mentioned, after 4 months, she looked back and she like realized, oh my gosh, like she's tried so many things and somehow it didn't make sense, but somehow those things in a way, right? They kind of all connected dots to get you
Hmm.
to where you are right now. And so in that moment, you might think this is not gonna make sense, or I'm trying this, is so random. But then when you look back, you'll realize how they kind of all interrelated to help you eventually to figure out what's next for you.
Yeah.
If someone is on the fence thinking about working with me or they're just considering hiring a life coach, is there anything that you want to let them know?
I think if, I mean, obviously, if this is like a too big of a step for them, I would probably just encourage them to start talking about their ideas with their friends. What I've found really helpful was in the past 4 months is just talking about things that I want to do. And during the process of talking, usually I'm able to sort through my thoughts. And then a lot of times I reach a conclusion before Shirley even said a single word. So it's really just having maybe someone to listen to you talk to help you sort through your thoughts. And what I realize is a lot of my decisions are very uh, like it's very is associated with a lot of emotions. Also, another reason why I felt stuck was because there's a lot of emotions involved. And then so sorting through my emotions also helps with getting clarity in terms of what I want to do. And like for example, in terms of my anxiety around, like not being in the tech industry or something more technical, after understanding the emotions behind that, I was able to finally solidify my decision to commit to, the BCBA path. So yeah, just if it's still if it's too big of a step for someone to take, maybe just start with talking to your friends, talking to your family about your ideas, and then maybe eventually you will want to talk to a professional after you've had some positive experience with, talking about your ideas out loud. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, like start wherever you are with whatever you can. Um, and as long as you just like get your ideas out, right? Almost like
Mhm.
practice speaking them. The more you speak it, the more you will figure out what's the next thing to do. But you want to speak them out loud. You don't want them to always be inside you and then they become a burden and become something that's in the back burner. And then eventually you just kind of feel foggy around it and you don't know what to do. Like that's usually what happens when you have too many things within you that are not being shared out loud.
Yeah, and I think another, I guess, bonus to have a life coach compared to just having a friend or family member is that they don't really know you personally. So it's a lot safer to share a lot of things without that personal connection and understanding. And then it's like a lot of things that I talk about, I might not be comfortable enough to talk about with like my some of my friends or my family. And then so having that freedom to just say anything without being judged is also very freeing and it's very helpful, especially in early stages or in the transitional period when you're very vulnerable, you know. So, and another thing is just embrace the vulnerability, I guess. Yeah, so like it's part of it's part of life to be vulnerable. So,
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure that by working with a life coach, it has helped you to become so much more vulnerable with how you
mm,
feel and your emotions. It's like you're literally just sharing them out loud. It's like if
yeah.
you have struggled with vulnerability with close people in your life, I think working in a session like this and have a space like this is a good practice space for you to
Mm,
practice sharing out how you actually feel. And then when you feel more comfortable speaking those things out loud, maybe you can give it a try with connecting with your loved ones so much more. Like it'll be so much easier for you to share with them how you're really feeling. And then like our sessions together is a very safe place. It's very open, it's
Mm.
non-judgmental space where you can share about anything and treat it as like a practice playground for you to discover, for you to explore, for you to say anything that's on your mind without being judged, and everything is welcome.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the fact that there's no judgment is really important because usually people feel when people feel stuck, I mean, it can be embarrassing. It can feel embarrassing. And there could be a lot of shame involved. At least that's how I felt before. And maybe a little bit now, but I think just having like 1 hour per week to have a judgment-free space for you to talk about your feelings and your outlook, your ideas, it kind of it helps with like gaining some confidence in the rest aspects of your life or my life at least.
Mm,
Mhm.
okay, thank you, Grace. Thank you so much for coming on. Any last words that you want to share with the audience?
No, no, I think it was a good interview. Maybe just everyone come see Shirley. She's great.
Ah, thank you. I
Yeah.
feel so honored, and it's been such a privilege coaching you as well. And for those of you listening, really think about what are some of the like notice some of the words and the things that Grace has shared, and really think about how you can apply this into your life as well to really help you to start thinking differently, to unstuck where you are, and think about how does this relate to your life and what you want to do next. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next.